The entry of the United States into World War II saw a massive depletion of the manufacturing workforce as men began shipping out to war. This resulted in a sizable amount of women being recruited to do those manufacturing jobs. To inspire women to join the effort and support the good old US of A, companies began producing a series of promotional images featuring a character who came to be known as Rosie the Riveter. Though the more well-known image of Rosie the Riveter by J. Howard Miller was never formally known by that name, it and others by the likes of Norman Rockwell would achieve iconic status throughout the duration of the war. The image helped prove that women were more than capable of doing the same type of manufacturing jobs as men. Throughout the second wave feminism movement of the 60s and 70s, Rosie would return as an image of women's strength. In 2011, DC Comics noticed a series of prints by artist Aunt Lucia depicting several female DC characters in Rosie the Riveter-style poses. They would soon enter an agreement with both Lucia and Udon Entertainment to produce a series of collectible statues based on those prints. Reception of the line of statues, called DC Comics Bombshells, has been kind of mixed. Not necessarily because the statues are of poor quality, but because the message is a tiny bit muddled. Though the line was created as a tribute to Rosie the Riveter and was meant to project the same things she did, like strength, confidence, and skill, the Bombshells also kinda came across like sexy pinup girls. In particular, there's been a lot of debate over the inclusion of the character Stargirl as part of the line. The debate stems from the fact that, one, the character of Stargirl in its current iteration of Courtney Whitmore is 15 years old. Two, the character of Courtney Whitmore was named after the late sister of writer Jeff Johns, who was killed in the TWA Flight 800 disaster in 1996. And three, did I mention Courtney Whitmore is 15 years old? Still, the Bombshell line proved popular enough that DC commissioned writer Marguerite Bennett develop and write a series based around the line in 2015. The series would be published in a digital-first mini-comic format, with 3 mini-comics then being compiled into a proper comic issue, much like the Wonder Woman 77 or JLA Beyond series that we've covered earlier in this show. Today we're looking at the first volume of DC Comics Bombshells, which collects 18 mini-comics, or 6 regular-sized comics. This is Volume 1, Enlisted. In Gotham City, a family exits a screening of The Mark of Zorro only to be jumped by a thug with a gun. Before anything else can happen, the criminal is jumped by none other than the Batwoman, the star member of the Gotham Knights women's baseball team. The team basically exists as a front for Kane Enterprises, with Batwoman being none other than Kate Kane, competing in several exhibition games against other corporate sponsors' teams like the Gotham Griffins, who just happen to feature Kate's cousin Betty as a member of that team. The two girls also enjoy clearing little dust-ups that sometimes break out in the stands. Okay, so this is where we're starting to break away from history a little bit here, as while there was an All-American Girls Professional Baseball League that was famously depicted in the film A League of Their Own, that didn't actually start until 1943, and these stories are stated to have taken place in 1940. In reality, though, Kate does keep her identity of Batwoman a secret because she's involved romantically with Gotham City Police Detective Maggie Sawyer. It's tough given that Kate really doesn't get any respect. She's been a filmmaker, a world traveler, and adventurer, and she's even fought in the Spanish Civil War, but no one takes her seriously because woman. Well, actually, there's an exception to that, as Kate and Maggie are rushed out of bed by an aircraft landing on top of their apartment complex. Colonel Amanda Waller would like to enlist the Batwoman's help in the war. Meanwhile, over the Greek coast, an air battle takes place. A pilot notices a mysterious island appearing through the clouds before a massive lightning bolt brings an army of female warriors riding the eagles. The pilot's plane is destroyed, and he, and soon every other pilot, begin washing up on the island where he's discovered by a woman named Diana. Yes, this is in fact Steve Trevor. However, it turns out the Amazons have a bone to pick with him as well, as both sides' conflict is beginning to spill over onto Themyscira, causing a lot of collateral damage. Trevor tries to explain who the real villains are and the damage they've caused to innocent people throughout Europe, but passes out. Diana orders the other Amazons to tend to Steve's injuries so that she can learn more about these Axis powers. As this happens, 2 young Soviet women named Kara Starikov and Courtney Dujanova are brought out to report to flight school. The 2 are planning to become part of the Night Witches, the Soviets' elite female fighting corps. Yes, this is basically how they got around that whole Stargirl fiasco I talked about earlier. That being said, the Night Witches were a real thing. They were the 588th Night Bombing Regiment, an all-female pilot corps that led bombing raids at night, hence the Night Witches name. Neither Kara or Courtney are too enthused with their lot in life, but they're duty-bound as their father has spoken out against the state and their mother is just overly superstitious. The two head out on their first flight training session, and it's then that things start to go crazy as Courtney's plane mysteriously explodes. Kara then proceeds to leap out of her craft and blows the flames out so she can save Courtney. She flies Courtney to the ground safely, and the two are then placed under arrest. Back on Themyscira, Diana talks with the mostly recovered Steve Trevor. Physically he's okay, but mentally he's dealing with PTSD. In fact, he's actually been dealing with that well before the crash. Diana believes that the Amazons will join the Allies, but Queen Hippolyta says no. If Diana wants to be in this war, she will have to do it herself. Also, Steve is to be executed. So Diana takes some Amazonian armor, some bracelets, a tiara, and of course the lasso of truth to break Steve out of prison. She also enlists the aid of a friend, Mira of Atlantis. Mira calls on her dolphins Gren and Lund to pilot a small sea craft to pilot everyone to the continent. Back in Moscow, General Anton Arcane speaks with Kara and Courtney. Kara explains that she was found in a meteor crater while Courtney was in utero, and the two Genovas took her in and raised the two as sisters. Kara's powers developed over time, and after demonstration, Arcane spots Kara and Courtney's likenesses in a painting called the Stargirl and Supergirl, the two beings who are considered the pinnacle of Soviet civilization. So now the sisters are just perfect propaganda. From here, we move on to Berlin and a character known as the Joker's daughter, who is in fact not the Joker's daughter. In fact, in most comics, the Joker's daughter is claimed to be Duella Dent, niece of Harvey Dent, aka Two-Face, though that lineage is also considered to be in dispute. Here, though, it's not Duella Dent. The Joker's daughter is in fact a powerful mystic who runs a cabaret to control various mystic heroes. In particular, the reverse-speaking magician Zatanna is one of her performers here. Zatanna puts on a show that enthralls the young German troops. It's halted when she recognizes one of the soldiers is none other than John Constantine, an English spy. The two begin fighting with magic, which ends when Zatanna turns Constantine into a rabbit. Really, though, this is just a cover, as Zatanna is trying to learn the Joker's daughter's plan. Back in Gotham City, Batwoman breaks up a unique smuggling ring that hits close to home and reinforces her choice to go with Waller as part of a new supergroup. Yes, the group does go on to be called the Bombshells. Also, the whole smuggling ring that Kate was breaking up turned out to be smuggling Jews out of Europe trying to get them to safety, except one of her employees then went rogue and sold those Jews out to the Nazis. This hits particularly close to home for Kate because she herself is half Jewish. Lucella prepares to sneak attack Batwoman only to be caught off guard by a mechanic named Harper Rowe. Soon the 14-year-old goes back to her fellow mechanics Kathy and Nell, and they begin formulating a new plan as Batwoman heads off to war. Kate heads back to Maggie to spend one last night with the woman she loves. The next day, when Kate leaves, she promises to come back and Maggie promises to wait. Waller meets Kate at the train station and briefs her while taking her down into a secret submarine headquarters. Kate is also assigned two new handlers, Dr. Kimio Hoshi and Barda Free. These two characters do play a larger role as the series goes on, and they are in fact interpretations of modern-day DC characters. Dr. Hoshi is the superheroine Katana, while Barda Free is a member of the New Gods and the wife of Scott Free, aka Mr. Miracle. Though if Barda Free sounds a little familiar to you, it's probably due to an infamous Superman storyline where she and the Man of Steel were brainwashed into starring in a porno movie. Yeah, that really did happen. Kate is being sent to Berlin, where her contact, an Italian countess and part-time cat burglar named Selena DeGotti, has found some disturbing documents on a heist. Speaking of Berlin, we now head back to Zatanna, Bonnie Constantine, and the Joker's daughter. They are led into a chamber where several officers of the Reich commit blood sacrifice on the enlistees. The bodies begin sinking into their own blood as the Joker's daughter performs a ritual chant and forces Zatanna to finish it off. This summons a demon called Tenebris the Binder. In case you were wondering, yes, this is what the DC Comics bombshell Catwoman found and reported to Amanda Waller. The Binder grabs the hand of the Joker's daughter and begins channeling magic. This allows him to take a human form while turning her into his servant on Earth by making her hand completely black. Zatanna runs back to her room where Constantine bums a cigarette and chastises her over her life choices. Meanwhile, Steve and Diana grow closer as they and Mira reach the Peloponnesians. When Steve falls asleep, Mira makes open notes about the blossoming romance between the two. Unfortunately, this is all shattered when the ship gets attacked just as it's making landfall. Steve points out that the attackers are the Axis powers, so Diana and Mira leap into action. When the Allied troops arrive and see the two women mowing through the Nazis, the commanding officer gleefully sends a message to Amanda Waller about finding two new bombshells. Okay, so I know this is kind of confusing with all the bouncing around, and I'll get into my problems with that later, but yeah, that's just what's happening right now. Everything is bouncing around from thing to thing to thing to thing very quickly. Anyway, we are actually now starting the second story arc in this collection, which is called Combat. Supergirl and Stargirl are made the focus of Soviet military might in propaganda only. In reality, the Night Witches do most of the work, while Kara and Courtney just sort of march around in parades. Finally, General Arcane relents and allows the two to lead a small squadron on a bombing raid. Supergirl and Stargirl are sent out to take out what they believe is a German prison camp. However, not too long after arriving, Kara begins hearing voices. Russian voices. It turns out these two were sent to destroy a group of dissidents. This proves to be too much as they turn on the Night Witches even though they've now put their family in danger. In a way, this makes sense as the name Anton Arcane is often associated with the primary villain in the Swamp Thing comics. There, Anton Arcane is a rogue geneticist who is obsessed with immortality and is set about trying to find a way to achieve it. Going along the way, he winds up creating a series of monstrous creatures called Unmen. Adding fuel to the fire is the fact that Abigail Arcane, Anton's niece, is the principal love interest of Swamp Thing, though Anton himself also has desires on her, even going as far as to possess the body of her late husband, Matthew Cable. Again, yeah, that really did happen. During a London blackout/bombing raid, Dr. Harley Quinn of the Arkham Psychiatric Ward prepares to go on holiday rounds. She's missing a party that's full of eligible battlers, but it's okay as her heart belongs to only one man. Quinzel visits with former colleague Chandra Kinsolving, who's taken the arrest of her brother very hard and thus become a patient of the ward. Chandra's been having nightmares about London being overrun by a large laughing man who's looking for Dr. Quinzel. The message triggers something in Harleen, and soon she's overjoyed that Mr. J is back. She then proceeds to kill a leering patient before freeing Chandra and heading out to find her beloved. First, it's off to the Arkham Christmas party where she meets a pilot named Hal Jordan. When the two slip away back to the hangar for some super happy fun time, Harley kicks Hal in the jubblies and steals his plane. Back in Greece, a new bombshell-suited Diana, now codenamed Wonder Woman, returns from another battle to see Steve. It's been a while since Diana joined the Bombshells, and while Steve is physically fine, he's still being haunted by the war. This has led many of Trevor's fellow soldiers to label him a coward. Finally, Steve begins trying to explain what was happening. He's not really a pilot, he's an intelligence officer who is trying to get back to his troop after witnessing something truly disturbing. But before he can continue, Diana sees some soldiers preparing to execute some prisoners. Diana intercedes, pointing out that the prisoners must stand trial and cannot be executed in cold blood. That would just make the Allies every bit as bad as the Axis. However, this winds up being viewed as an act of desertion. On to Kay Kane, who's arriving in Berlin and waiting for her contact. She gets picked up by none other than Lex Luthor, who isn't really her contact, but like any good capitalist, he enjoys playing both sides to the middle. He takes her to the Countess's villa and introduces Kate to Selina, who takes her into a back room. Sorry everyone, but this is where your secret desires come to an end. Selina opens a hidden door leading to a meeting of the Occult Society of Tenebris the Binder from earlier. There is a corpse of a fallen soldier at the head of the room, and the Joker's daughter emerges and presents her newly charred appendage. After a short chant, the soldier suddenly emerges alive, but with even less of a soul. Yes, it appears the Joker's daughter has acquired the same powers of longtime Green Lantern nemesis, the Black Hand. The Black Hand, aka William Hand, played a primary role during the Blackest Night event storyline where he became the avatar for Necron, the spirit of death in the Lantern universe. Anyway, we need to get back to Harley Quinn. Harley is flying over Calais, France, and singing Christmas songs while initiating a bombing run. She gets shot down and rides a bomb Slim Pickens style into a large palatial garden. The bomb doesn't go off, much to Harley's displeasure, and soon the home's owner, Pamela Isley, has a gun on Harley. Harley is immediately love-struck, and it's somehow enough for Pamela to just take her in without question. I should point out that Poison Ivy here is in league with Catwoman in running a black market smuggling ring of high-end fashion and jewels and the like. In fact, she also imports several chemicals that she's trying to make into a pheromone to keep the troops docile while she's entertaining them, and this has resulted in her skin tint being affected by mood. Or it's just a bad coloring error so that they don't know how to get the accurate shade of green. Ivy has recently killed some rambunctious German soldiers and buried them in her garden. Now it seems that backup is arriving. However, Harley elects to assist her newfound friend and leads the troops into the garden where she manages to reactivate the bomb. The two decide to speed away to Berlin, but behind them, the soldiers begin reviving. Back in the USS, back in the USS, back in the USSR, Kara and Courtney get the prisoners they were supposed to kill to safety and then head off to their home village. However, General Arcane has already gotten word of their betrayal and evacuated the village, save for the girl's parents, who he's taken hostage. There are so many guns trained on the girl's parents that while Kara may be super fast, there's no way she's going to stop every bullet from possibly hitting them. Arcane presents Kara with an offer.
Her parents will be spared as long as she turns herself over for experimentation to try to transfer her abilities to more worthy individuals. That's suddenly interrupted as Courtney attacks with a large plant creature emerging from the swamp.
Yes, I mentioned earlier that the girls often discuss the dichotomy of their parents, their father being a former cosmonaut and scientist, while their mother is ultra-superstitious and religious, believing in the ancient spirit of the forest that came when Courtney prayed to it and rescued them, which is why the sudden appearance of Swamp Thing there, because swamp equals forest, apparently.
The family takes off only to run into the Night Witches, and in the melee, Kara drops her father, who is then grabbed by the enemy. He tells the girls to save their mother and themselves, and they reluctantly choose to leave him behind, promising to return and rescue him. In the waters of the Mediterranean, a U-boat gets taken out by 2 sperm whales sent by Mira, though the occupants, much like the victims of the bombing from before, are soon revived. Aquawoman, as she's called, is then welcomed aboard a passing battleship, where she enjoys flirting with the sailors. It's all interrupted by the sudden arrival of Stargirl and Supergirl. Mira has a brief scuffle with Kara until Courtney steps up and explains that they are looking to defect. They know about the Bombshells and are willing to do everything they can to possibly go back and rescue their father. Back in Berlin, Batwoman stumbles across an underground dance club. Swing music was banned by the Reich, but there are pockets of resistance everywhere. It's comforting to Kate as she then helps everyone when the club gets raided,
thus safely ensuring that Christian Bale will go on to accept his Academy Award for his role in the movie Reign of Fire.
The lead singer of the band proves to be quite skilled with a crossbow and aids Kate in taking down what she calls Tenebril soldiers. To pay it back, Batwoman decides to allow the singer, Helena, to join up with her and sneaks her into the trunk of Selina's car when she and Lex come by to pick Kate up. As they head back to Selina's villa, Lex explains that he may have found something big. He's grown increasingly upset over the amount of superpowered individuals that have been popping up in this conflict, which means less profit for him. But now, Luthor has turned up something that might tip the scales back into their favor. A glowing green element that could help even the odds of any battle. In Greece, Diana appears to be waiting for her punishment, which is likely execution, until she suddenly decides to just escape. Also, Harley and Ivy then arrive in Berlin, and finally, Zatanna and Constantine, who are still a bunny at this point, talk about trying to get away from the Joker's daughter. He suggests trying to locate Amanda Waller and maybe joining the Bombshells. But she knows that the magic the Joker's daughter is wielding might be too powerful, as evidenced by the fact that the Joker's daughter has actually been spying on Zatanna the entire time from the shadows.
And that concludes our look at Bombshells Volume 1, Enlisted. How was it? Well, on the plus side, I do like a lot of the characterization in this. Everyone has clear motives. They seem relatable, understandable. They're not too different from their modern-day counterparts entirely. It still feels pretty good, like you're still reading a DC superhero story. It just happened to be set in World War II. And the artwork itself is pretty decent. In fact, I would say it helps address one of the main complaints with the statues was, again, the over-sexualization. And, well, this kind of keeps a lot of the cheesecake tempered down. I mean, some of it's sort of unavoidable. I mean, Supergirl's décolletage, for example, is just a little too much. And, yeah, there's a couple of scenes with Kate Kane and Maggie Sawyer that are kind of just there for, ooh, yeah, look at that. But other than that, that's not too terribly bad. And there's some decent action sequences in this, and like I said, characterization's pretty spot on. Everyone feels good. It's clear, it's good, precise storytelling. There's some decent villains, I think. And like I said, that part works. Unfortunately, the one thing that just really drags it down is the constant bouncing around from here to there. I get that this was kind of how the original mini-comics came out, but you could have reformatted this when collecting this into a collected volume. Like, really, I wish they had focused more on what appear to be the principal bombshells, i.e. Batwoman, Wonder Woman, and Mira, Courtney and Kara, Supergirl and Stargirl, I mean, and that feels more prominent, and then push like the magic stuff and the Harley Quinn Poison Ivy stuff, you know, a little bit more into the background, where they're maybe appearing in little snippets or vignettes, or just little backup stories towards the end. I think that would have flowed a little bit better and led to a better flow. I mean, to be honest, I would have even dumped the whole Harley and Ivy thing, just because that feels really tacked on. And again, because of that whole unevenness with them popping up in the middle of the story so often, it just leads to an uneven flow, and the ending kind of comes across as kind of rushed. I mean, all that stuff I talked about, Wonder Woman breaking out of the military prison, Harley and Ivy arriving in Berlin, Kara and Stargirl joining the Bombshells, all of that, it just happens in like a one-page span. It really makes it feel a little clunky, and that's why I can't quite give this a full recommendation. It's a solid read, but it really could have been better. I'm going to give DC Comics Bombshells Volume 1 a B. Again, like I said, solid, just it really could have strove to be a lot better, and I wish it had been. And with that, let's see what we'll be doing next time on the Random Trade Review.
Remember, you can help support my channel at patreon.com/sleepytimeforcatproductions. There, you can request a trade to be put in the randomizer, aka the cardboard box. Also, remember, like, comment, share, subscribe, and ring that notification bell.